And then we have Amy and Laurie is half Italian, and Italians were not treated with respect in the 19th century America.
I think his Italian side only shows when he has one of his moods, like when he's angry or when he's happy or something like that. Only then do we see that he is Italian. Like, that's not to be a stereotype, but I think it's that people who are from that kind of country, they are very temperamental.
There are some scenes in Little Women where Laurie mentions how he wants to connect more with his Italian roots, and that I think that's why he's also very artistic. He's interested in music and art and things like that, and to him Italy sort of represents those things. And then I think it has a parallel to Joe, because for Joe, Germany and Goethe and German Romanticism, it really represents sort of high literature, high poetry, theater pieces, and all these great things that come from Germany. So not only is Louisa May Alcott a Germanophile, but Joe is also a Germanophile.
Yes, that is very true. And I also have to say I love it that both Joe and Louisa May Alcott are very interested in German culture and German language and costumes. I know it came much later, but when you think of World War II, especially, like, for me, it is also very important that a novel at that time portrayed the German culture, German language, etc. as a very good and unique thing. Because mostly when I now look at movies or something like that, it is mostly propagandic that all Germans are bad. And I think that is a very sad thing because, I mean, everybody has a good and a bad side inside him or herself, and I think it should be balanced. And I really love that, unlike most people of her time, Louisa May Alcott didn't treat German people with disrespect, but with very much respect, especially because she was a transcendentalist, and transcendentalism is very much inspired by German philosophy that was also stated by Friedrich in the 1994 adaptation. And I also think it's very important to acknowledge the fact that, unlike most people of the time, Louisa May Alcott did love Germany and German people, because diversity is very important and respect is very important.
Yes, I think you are actually the person who might be able to tell about this. Louisa May Alcott loved Goethe, and Goethe is really a big part of German culture in general. How do you see Goethe in Germany? What's his presence?
We have read a few poems of his. My father has, I think, Faust in Turkish, but still Faust, has a copy of it. And I have to say, just newly in the German class, we discussed a poem of Goethe's when he looked at Schiller's skull, because these two were very close. When he looked at Schiller's skull, that's when he wrote the poem. And I have to say, I think Goethe is very important, because he portrays such a positive aspect of German culture. I also have to say, I think it's sad that the teenagers of this time, which I used to be, but not longer right now, I think it's also very sad. Many people in my classes, they dislike poems in general, so they also kind of dislike Goethe's poems, and then I am there. I adore his poems, because first of all, his language is very wonderful for me. And I also have to say, I have a fable for interesting people, so I guess I'll someday even read all of Goethe's novels, or when I find a good biography, I'll also plan on reading one, because I also think it is very important to know about people who shaped our culture.
What you said about Schiller made me wonder if Schiller was the one who Friedrich was named after in Little Woman, or maybe it was Friedrich Delmotte Fouquet. But I have a feeling it might have been Schiller.
Yeah, me too. Especially because I think that Goethe and Schiller, they were very close. Like I said, he wrote a poem after seeing his skull. I think because they were very good friends, and Louisa May Alcott was such not a fanatic, but she really, really loved Goethe. That was very clear. I mean, even in work, David, he has novels of Schiller as well as of Goethe. So I think it is more likely that Friedrich is named after Schiller. Yes, that's of course my own theory. But like I said, I also think that besides Goethe, I think Schiller also may have had an impact on Louisa, because the robbers, I think it's called, in Schiller's first novel, there's a feminine character called Amalia. I don't know how to pronounce her in English, but she is very sweet, very generous. She is like kind of like Beth, but without the fact that Beth fell in love with somebody. She's very kind and giving and generous, and she only wants the best for everyone. So I also had some parallels between Schiller's work and Louisa's work.
That's really interesting. What was the name of that book?
It was called The Robbers. Like I said, it's his first novel, so I haven't read anything else from him yet, but maybe in another novel of his, we also see how much he's improved, because he wrote that one when he was 17. Suppose he was not allowed to write at that time. I forgot why, but he wasn't allowed. And I think it's funny that he made a story that is close to Louisa May Alcott's Blood and Thunder stories, and the main character, Cole, is very much an archetype of this movement that was around in Germany at that time.
I was just saying that in Rose in Bloom, Mac reads Goethe, but I realized he doesn't read Goethe, he actually reads Henry David Thoreau. In Little Women, there's a moment in part 1 where John translates a poem from Schiller to Meg.
Yes, that is very cute, and it's also very funny because John also knows German, and it's also funny if you think about it. It kind of is like the whole March family is very interested in German culture. Like, maybe you don't see much with the others as much as you see with Joe, but I think Meg was also very eager to hear the translation of it, and John was also like, yeah, I'll help you translate it, or I can teach you a bit German. I think he said that, I'm not sure, but I think he said that, and it is also very sweet.
Yes, I have forgotten about that. I love it. It kind of goes along with my theory that Louisa May Alcott planned Joe's marriage maybe years before she wrote Little Women, because it does feel like a natural thing to do, to introduce a German character to this family that is really obsessed about everything that comes from Germany.
I have to say, the first thing that comes to my mind when I hear people saying Friedrich was only shoveled because Louisa was forced to marry Joe off is, well, but why, if she was forced, why in the world would Louisa May Alcott write so many things about Joe's and the March's love for Germany?
I think we can all agree that this really comes from the quote that she wrote in her journals about reuniting with her loved one in the afterlife. So Little Woman is a wish fulfillment.
I think it's also kind of racist of them to state that he was shoveled into the novel, because, I mean, they know Friedrich is German, and it almost always feels like they dislike him, especially because he is German. Like, even people today are like, man, she should have stayed single or with Laurie, which, to be honest, I can't stand both of it. I could never stand the thought that Joe might have ended with Laurie or alone, especially after reading the chapters All Alone and Surprises, because in these 2 chapters you can see how lonely Joe is, and then there are people who say she only married Friedrich because Friedrich was invented because Louisa May Alcott was forced to marry him.
I think you are correct about the racism, because I have read so many Louisa May Alcott studies that are like, Joe should have married Laurie, or Joe should have been alone. There usually is a racist undertone when they start to speak about Friedrich's character, and then they do not include these parts in Little Woman where Joe clearly loves everything that comes from Germany, or Louisa May Alcott's adoration to Germany. In Rose in Bloom, there is a Chinese character called Fancy, and he marries an American girl.
It's funny that in Rose in Bloom, I think, Fancy married. It is also very important because it shows that well, okay, he was kind of mocked a bit, conceived in the first book. I think it's also very important because, like, he didn't just completely leave them off in the second book. She included them, conceived, and she made him marry an American because it shows how inclusive she is.